How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. One of my personal goals I've made, especially for this summer, is to get back into a lot more reading like I used to. Collecting my single issues, having my goals is fun, but I miss just finding the time to sit down and read through stories as much as I used to. So, here we have the Absolute Batman Death of the Family edition by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. So I had completely forgot that DC was putting out a lot of these editions off of their run. I already have Court of Owls, the Absolute Court of Owls, but I completely forgot that they also announced a Death of the Family, a 0-year. I have the Dark Knight's Medal, but I also forgot they announced a Dark Knight's Death Medal. So I recently bought all of the ones available so I can get caught up right now. As far as I know, they have not announced any more in their run. If they do, I will absolutely, because I don't know, anybody that might be newer to the channel might not know, but Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman run in the New 52 era is very much the run that got me into picking up and reading comics each week and not just waiting for a collected edition or going for a much older backstock edition of an issue. So this run, all 52 issues they did, is very near and dear to my heart. I love Greg Capullo's artwork with a passion. Scott Snyder's storytelling, sometimes the endings of the books, they don't quite stick. Other ones, once I read it the first time, if I was a little let down, once I know how it's going to end, I appreciate it much more. This one is a very good example where when I initially read this story, the ending didn't really wow me. It felt a little anticlimactic, but then the more I read it, the more I accepted it and really started to appreciate it for the psychological story that it was. I enjoy it much more now. So here we have this beautiful hardcover Absolute edition, pretty much the biggest, most premium you can get for a single story from DC. Omnibus I love, where it has everything you want in one book, but a lot of times I just want that one story on my shelf to pick it off, see them all lined up, and get to read it in the biggest, best version of just that story, and that is what you have with the Absolute editions. So, still in the shrink wrap, it's got a little blurb up on the side that is actually from the story itself. Here you have a little insert that once I get the plastic wrap off, we'll be able to get a better look at. But here we have, the Joker is back, and he has transformed into something more deadly and insidious than ever before. Targeting those closest to Batman, the Clown Prince of Crime will unleash his most unpredictable, vicious, and psychotic assault on the Dark Knight ever. Experience Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's genre-defining #1 New York Times best-selling story in the brand new, prestigious, oversized Absolute edition, also featuring the work of James Tynion IV, Tony S. Daniel, and Jock. Collects Detective Comics from the New 52, #1, and Batman from the New 52, issues number 13 through 17, the complete pencils to issue 17, and more, along with a brand new introduction by Snyder. So, absolutely incredible book. I am super happy to finally bust into this thing. And anybody interested in picking this up, you can see down below, it has a retail price tag of $100 US. I can tell you right now that even brand new sealed, you can go online and find these much cheaper like I did. I got the ones I have coming in off of eBay, and they were anywhere from $50 to $70 depending on the discount, because the seller sent an offer out after I had watched it for a hot minute. So you can get these well under retail. So if you see them in person, want to impulse buy, grab them, go for it. Other than that, I highly recommend shopping around because it's not like they're cheap anyway. So the better deal you guys can get, the better. All right, but let's start out by getting this baby out of the shrink wrap. Okay, so here we are, shrink wrap is removed, and many of you might not know, but I am also a very huge movie and film buff, where I have a pretty extensive Steelbook 4K collection for movies I absolutely enjoy. And that same thing, I love physical media when it comes to picking that one off the shelf and getting to see it. But I love a good steelbook with a slipcover, and if it doesn't have one, I put it in a protective slipcover of its own. So the fact that this book, in addition to the hard cardboard case that it normally comes in for protection, also features a slipcover on here, is the little bit of icing on the cake for me that kind of sends this over the top. And in the 0-year one, we'll compare a little bit, but it is very, very cool that you have, for this slipcover, it's sliding right off. So you can remove the cowl to see more of the Bruce Wayne Batman, beautifully drawn by Capullo as well. And we can just resheath right there. And then on the reverse side, you have that beautiful classic Joker wearing his own face imagery. I was going to say, I still want to be very careful. I'm a little anal when it comes to my collectibles. And there you have the Joker face off in all of his glory. Absolutely beautiful. Better look at the spine now that we have less of the reflection. And same for the actual book. So it is in a nice hardcover actual protector right there. Here you have a closer look at the slipcover. Again, very clear. So again, you have that cowl and face removing effect that in 0-year, I believe each side of the book is very similar, where you have Bruce Wayne, the cowl can be removed. So when I do my review of that one, we will compare. All right, but now we'll go ahead and pull the actual book out. Ooh, and that is beautiful. So again, just a nice hardcover cardboard slipcase right there to go with it. So we'll set that up off to the side. And this is one of my favorite Joker art pieces that Capullo has done. I have seen this in a print. I don't think, and I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, please let me know because I want to pick it up. I do not believe he has a comic that features this cover or this artwork. This is just kind of a depiction of how he looked in one of the stories, well, in this story. But there is an art print that he was doing at signings where you can get this in an art print with his signature, and I absolutely love this. And one of the things I always point out with Capullo is when he's doing very small or faraway characters, he's a master at getting the movement come through with a bare minimum detail. One of the things I'm always envious of, because in my brief stint of going to college for graphic design, I was very good at doing drawings like this that are up close, detailed, very line work driven, but I was terrible when it came at conveying movement in a very organic way where it didn't feel blocky and choppy. But the fact that Capullo can do both, where you have this very up close, detailed, beautiful artwork with all of the Bat family hanging out the tassels of his jester cap, this is absolutely phenomenal. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the other side. All right, so we got the same one going on both. Let's say, is that something or is that a little piece from my coffee table? And that's all it is. All right, so we got the same image going on both. We'll go ahead and crack the first page. All right, so it's almost like the dirty, broken asylum wall right here. That also opened up very well for a book that I have yet to crack open, as you saw. So pages aren't too stiff. There we go, this classic artwork right here of poor Alfred getting it when he answered the door. This also I have in DC Collectibles' small black and white statue line. They did a statue off of this version of the Joker in this pose. That is also really incredible. Table of contents. I believe there's also a special, I forget what the variant was, but a variant cover that did feature this artwork of Batman that I do have in my single issues. Introduction as, well, I say, we'll get it up a little bit. Introduction by Scott Snyder. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you guys want to pause the video, if you are interested, and go ahead and read that for yourselves, go ahead and do that now. Other than that, we're just going to go ahead and move on so I don't bore you to tears. All right, so yep, we have the Tony S. Daniel artwork. Oh, and it looks like Scott Snyder's intro actually went on 2 pages. So same thing, I will get that nice and close in case anybody would like to pause and read the introduction on there. All right, so we have the Tony S. Daniel Detective Comics cover, and that's the story that we're going into right here. So again, just absolutely phenomenal artwork. There you go, I'll get through it. And the good thing about all these Absolute editions is they do come with a page marker ribbon right there, so you can easily just kind of keep your spot wherever you are reading. So fantastic Tony S. Daniel art. Go ahead and we'll skip ahead a little bit. There we go. So this actually, I believe, is also a variant cover that you got on one of the issues that I also have in my comic collection. Absolutely phenomenal, where it's both minimalist and detailed at the same time. as well as the closing page of the Tony S. Daniel Detective Comics with Joker's face left hanging on the wall as he made his escape. And again, it became one of those things that whether you loved it or hated it, it was very much iconic to what that new 52 era Joker was doing, and at least gave him a look that you had not seen. All right, so there we go. Gets right into the actual Death of the Family arc. And again, the big ones we had on the run were Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion, and I'm going to call it Fico Placencia. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Another one of the iconic Joker covers where it's just the face. Another, I believe, variant cover edition that I also have in my collection. Pretty much if it's a Capullo cover associated in any way with the main run, I have added it to my personal collection. And you have it again in the black and white, and then again, just, I'm not going to flip through the whole book, but absolutely phenomenal artwork that we have here. We'll just go ahead and we'll kick the ribbon out of the way for now. And one of the things I would like to compare with this book after is Scott Snyder was notorious for kind of changing things from single issues to when they went into collected editions. Now that is absolutely a beautiful splash page right there. The colors are gorgeous. Fico always knocks it out of the park with the colors on that, absolutely through and through. But seeing it that large also, absolutely phenomenal. So let's see what else we have in here. All right, Batman approaching the asylum, also classic. Batman Joker on the bridge. And again, if anybody has not read this story, highly recommend it. It is just, the artwork is phenomenal, the story is phenomenal. Some people thought Snyder in his early run also could be a little wordy at times, and him and Capullo very much hit a perfect balance between letting the story and art, have their day in the sun towards the later half of their run. Sometimes I feel, even as much as I love Capullo, might have been given too much to do, where I could have enjoyed a little bit more of the story aspect. Their runs later on very much became very fun and bombastic and kind of celebratory instead of as much story-driven at times. All right, and at the back of the book, we're going to have the variant cover gallery or cover gallery. So this is a one from Batman issue 13. Another one from issue 13 right here. Also, this one over here, obviously Capullo, different coloring. So here we have variant covers of issue 14 and 14. Variant covers of issue 15. Another one where this one right here, the regular version, I think it's just white. So now that you have that brain blood vessel with Joker in Batman's mind, absolutely phenomenal right there. Variant covers for issue 16, and again 16. And so I think this is back at the time when you only really had one or two variant covers, and they didn't go as ham with it like they do now, where you might actually have 10 to 15 different variant covers. All right, issue 17. And yep, this right here, as it says, is Absolute Batman Death of the Family cover. So other than art prints, this book, as of the date of this, is the only book, comic, anything that this artwork is featured on, and absolutely phenomenal. I do have some signed Capullo art prints in my collection I have framed up. This is one I would love to get added. All right, Masks and Faces Gallery. Joker 80th Anniversary Mask. So I also have a collection that this came out. This was during a time where they did a collected edition that came with an actual mask in the box with the book. They also did one for Court of Owls that featured the Owl's mask. That was equally as awesome. Then we have just the 13 cover right here. Again, that kind of slip cover. Joker without his actual face. Batman has that little smirking grin. Then issue 13, the combo pack variant cover. A little bit of crazy in the eye, the coloring off, where it's almost like he's becoming a little Jokerized himself. And then we have the New York Comic-Con cover. So this is another exclusive where you have like the fully Jokerized version of Batman right here. Then we have Detective Comics issue 15 cover. So again, only a slight variant. And then Detective Comics 15 combo pack cover. And again, these are just absolutely beautiful. I love that it includes them all in one place. I was collecting, I don't know how many of these I have, but I'll collect these also. So you have issue Batman 17, the WonderCon variant cover, and Batman and Robin 15, just generic cover. because around this time they tied in all of the titles extremely well, and they gave them these matching covers that it was fun to collect again. So you have Batgirl 13, where this was the cover, Catwoman 13, where this was the cover. And it was just a fun time to read their interactions with Joker and collect all of these headshot covers all together in one box. It was beautiful. So Nightwing 15, Red Hood and the Outlaws 15, Suicide Squad 14, and then we have Teen Titans 15. Like I said, they really branched amongst all titles. And so it looks like in the back right here, we have a little bit of the making of the Death of the Family. So along with Court of the Owls and I believe Death of the Family, they also released a hardcover edition that is just the penciled version that I also own. Because again, going to school for graphic design, loving to see the artwork side of it. Absolutely phenomenal just seeing everything laid out before you get the amazing inks and amazing colors. So, and this is just beautiful. Seeing the different shots they went into, the coloring, the pencil work on here. Tony S. Daniels cover that he did. It looks like played around with a couple different versions of it, where it says right here we have the preliminary drawing, where Joker's a little tilted up, more maniacal. Here you have almost like more of a dead severed head kind of style. A little bit more of the actual working thumbnail pages. Beautiful. Tony S. Daniel again. Just that mask hanging on wall right there. The more detailed final version of it. Just beautiful. And again, the coloring, yes, the coloring adds to it absolutely. Makes it look phenomenal. But again, just seeing the pencil work, the shading, there is some detail work that you lose once you throw in the inks and the colors that you only see in the pencil version. So it's very, very cool just seeing that final step before we get to all of that. Some different, kind of covers play around with the Joker. Again, iconic penciled splash page right here. And his very infamous in this story, little black book hanging off his belt right there. So here we have a little bit of the script and final inks for Tease from Batman 13. So again, kind of Harley discovering that Joker is now back. Again, just everything that this book has is absolutely incredible. And it's one of the things that I do kind of like more about the Absolute editions than Omnibus also. Omnibus are great if a story has many ties in, many offshoots, many one-shots of just getting everything for you in one book. But many times, I just want to read the main story as uninterrupted in its best form as possible. And that is where I will choose for the, not for the Omni, that is where I will choose the Absolute Edition over the Omnibus. I just want to read Death of the Family as big and beautiful as it can be. When I finish it, do a little behind the scenes, and this has all of that. And DC, in addition to I have their volume collected editions as they were coming out, I also do have their, what was it? They had not an omnibus, but essentially an omnibus, where it's like the complete Death of the Family, where it has all the tie-ins and everything in one book as well of it. So while they didn't call it an omnibus, it is essentially an omnibus. So that one, if I want to read, Harley Quinn, if I want to read Catwoman, all of their interactions for their spin-offs with him, then I have it in one book ready to go, and I can go from one to the other. This is more if I want that main run uninterrupted in all of its beauty, then seeing the beautiful pencils afterward. And this is just beautiful. So I didn't go to this in the book, but again, this penciled out splash page when you finally see the blindfold be lifted and Batman gets to see the dinner table that Joker has set in this final confrontation of the story. That is just awesome right there. And again, this is just the artwork. Capullo at this point had really started to fire on all cylinders. He had a little bit of it here, but in Court of the Owls, if you guys go back and read that story, you can see that for his first time on Batman, a lot of his characters and character faces were still kind of overly geometrical, as in, late in the groundwork, he hadn't really defined the characteristics of them that he would be known to draw over and over, and they would become so much more smoothed out. And this is the story when you finally start to lose a little bit of it being overly geometrical and having a little bit more organic flow to the faces of his characters as he started to really take them on as his own. So again, this book, absolutely incredible. I'm going to say, we don't have to go through all of the artwork. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything extra in the back and that it is just that. And that's what it's looking like right there. And so I do want to find for you guys, because as I mentioned before, Scott Snyder is almost notorious for adding a little bit of dialogue or changing it in post. And so I want to see how much it matches up. So this page, for instance, will have a really, really small one, because you'll see in this bottom panel, Batman right here is replying to the Joker saying, "So I can whisper it right into your ear, darling." And that was not originally in the individual issue when the comic came out. And so I have one version of the volume collected edition right here, where this one does not have a slipcover. Well, it has a slipcover, but it's all part of it. The mask does not separate. And if I scroll to this one and open up on this page, you can see that the wording is exactly the same right there, where you very specifically have that word darling. But if I go to the issue I don't have on me, but another collected edition, where this one does very much have the slipcover mask, so the face is on the book, and I scroll to that same page, you can see right there that darling is missing. So if you guys read this story when it's coming out, and then you pick up the collected editions, it's very cool to go back through and compare and see how much of the wording Scott Snyder actually changed in post before the collected edition came out. Again, I think there's only a couple small things in this story where when the book first came out, I think he was a little bit afraid to really lean into playing into the romantic side of this relationship, where Joker is not only obsessed for Batman, but there is this twisted love he has for Batman, that as he was on Batman and they did the collected editions, he became more comfortable with as he went on. So as they actually got the collected editions, he tweaked a couple things for the print run. So you'll find a couple things like that, and it's nothing huge throughout this story. But another one is, I know that Super Heavy had some same things when that book came out. But again, it's just fun if you guys have these to go ahead and go back through and kind of see how many things you can notice that might have been changed since you last saw it. But so there we have it, folks. That is all we're going to do for today. And like I said, I got in The Death of the Family. I got in Batman Zero Year. I already owned Court of Owls and Dark Knight's Metal, but I also recently got in Dark Knight's Death Metal. So no matter what, I am going to go through Zero Year, and I am going to go through Dark Knight's Death Metal. However, if this video seems to do pretty well, I might also go back and do the Court of Owls Absolute as well as the Dark Knight's Metal Absolute. So it's going to be completely up to you guys. Either way, I enjoy doing these videos for a run and a story that I absolutely love. When I first moved out of my parents' house, fresh out of high school, I had bare bones in my first apartment, and all I would do is go to my comic shop, walk out, go back home, sit and read my books. And so this is a very special, very pivotal time in my life when these came out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Looking forward to seeing a lot more, as well as some big boy purchases. I have 2 fun graded books coming in, also towards my Batman collection. But again, if you want to see more without less talking, check out my Instagram, Conlan's Comics. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next video.